Your Excellency, Mr. Saba Korosi, President of the 77th session of the General Assembly, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and of Government, Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, some of the great strides that the United Nations has made span peaceful settlement of disputes, restoring calm in many countries through peacekeeping, decolonization, raising awareness of human rights, and eradicating diseases. Mr. President, we are living in uncertain times. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the nature of multilateral engagement, diplomacy, business, and of basic human interaction. The pandemic has not only hastened the pace and scale of digital revolution, but has also increased the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and furthermore exposed our vulnerability as Africa's landlocked, least developed country. We therefore need to make concerted efforts to protect lives and empower the citizenry across the globe through innovation and digital technologies to achieve sustainable recovery. It is of paramount importance for us as African leaders to be proactive in investing in research and development in readiness for a certain future pandemic. We note with satisfaction the statement by President Biden delivered before this August House on the 21st of September 2022, in which he clearly articulated America's support for representation of Africa and other underrepresented regions in the United Nations Security Council, particularly in the permanent category. Let us make the 77th session one for decisive action on this matter. Mr. President, today we see the heightened geopolitical tensions that have led to the re-emergence of protectionist trade policies. The economic war in terms of sanctions has the potential to make global supply chains less efficient, subtracting from long-term growth and adding pressures on prices. This state of affairs flies in the face of the resolve of the representatives who gathered in San Francisco to finalize the Charter of the United Nations more than 7 decades ago, and who dreamed of a world of equality and shared prosperity. They renounced a vision of a world of unilaterally imposed economic sanctions and financial blockages against others, or one in which peoples are denied their right to self-determination or were subjected to occupation. It would therefore be remiss of me not to unequivocally call for the lifting of all economic and political sanctions against Zimbabwe. In the like manner, we express solidarity with the tenacious people of Cuba for having endured economic sanctions for so many years. We are confident that the United States of America, under the leadership of President Biden, will revisit its position on the embargo against the Republic of Cuba, and expand cooperation with Cuba on areas of mutual interest, including on trade and commerce, for the benefit of the peoples of both countries. This, the United States did in 2016 through the Presidential Policy Directive, and it can surely do it again. We also want to express our unwavering solidarity with the people of Western Sahara, who have languished under the hegemony of colonialism for far too long. I also wish to underline, in particular, the General Assembly Resolution 40/50 of 2nd December 1985, in terms of which the Assembly reaffirmed the fact that the question of Western Sahara was a question of decolonization, which remained to be completed on the basis of the exercise by the people of Western Sahara of their inalienable right to self-determination and independence. Equally, the United Nations Security Council, in its resolution 1920 of 2010, 1979 of 2011, and 2044 of 2012, recognized that the consolidation of the status quo in Western Sahara was unacceptable and called for an intensified pace of meetings and strengthening of contacts between the parties in order to advance the organization of the referendum. We call upon the international community to intensify efforts to bring to an end the question of Western Sahara. In the same vein, we express our unwavering support for the people of Palestine. Since the founding of the UN, the question of Palestine has been at the center of the agenda of our organization. Yet today, the Palestinian territory still remains under foreign occupation and its people endure untold pain and suffering. We call on the United Nations to intensify its efforts to achieve a comprehensive, just, and lasting settlement of the question of Palestine. Mr. President, allow me to conclude my remarks by pointing out that the regime of the Charter of the United Nations has so far done its part in preventing a third world war, thereby fulfilling one of the dreams of the architects of our beloved organization. The continued success and the relevance of the United Nations will depend in large measure on its capacity for self-renewal and in readiness to meet modern-day challenges. We, the United Nations, should continue to be the voice of the voiceless and the best hope for all mankind. Now is the time for leaders everywhere to join the race for transformative action that can drive peace, democracy, respect for human rights, and the rule of law, as well as human dignity, economic competitiveness, and sustainable prosperity for all. Lesotho, at the very outset, allow me to congratulate you on your well-deserved election to the office of the President of the General Assembly for the 77th session. Mr. President, your illustrious career as a diplomat assures us of a successful session. I assure you of my delegation's full support and cooperation during your tenure of office. I also wish to commend your predecessor, His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Shahid, for his stewardship in discharging his duties during the previous session. At the same time, the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, which was already anemic prior to 2020, has been aggravated by the pandemic. The expectation of the international community was to intensify the decade of action to achieve the goals. But certainly, we find ourselves in a prolonged period of recovery. As we ushered in the new 17 Sustainable Development Goals on 1st January 2016, member states were optimistic that the better life for all was in sight. However, the 2030 deadline for the achievement of the SDGs is gradually approaching, yet there is still no significant progress in their attainment due to several factors that have adversely affected implementation. In addition to the pandemic, this includes unpredictable global shocks, including wars, climate-related events, and lack of predictable financing. The environment in which we operate is significantly less favorable than it was when we began 6 years ago. Our room to maneuver is much more constrained today. Nevertheless, our quest to pursue a sustainable future must never wait. Lesotho will continue to be persistent and a resilient part of that initiative. I thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho for the statement just made, and I request protocol.